What if I told you that one teenager with a gun accidentally triggered the First World War, a conflict that claimed millions of lives? On a bright summer morning in Sarajevo, a 19-year-old nationalist named Gavrilo Princip pulled the trigger. 2 shots, a single political murder. Princip did not merely kill Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He tripped a wire, activating a doomsday clock that Europe's leaders, consumed by pride and delusion, chose not to stop. Within 5 weeks, 6 million men were marching to war. Europe in 1914 was not tense. It was a loaded gun, pointed and cocked. The infrastructure for global war was already constructed. 2 gigantic, armed camps, the Triple Entente, France, Britain, Russia, versus the Central Powers, Germany, Austria, Hungary. The teams were picked. They only needed someone to blow the whistle. Within days of the assassination, Berlin delivered the blank check to Vienna. This was the fatal assurance. Germany promised Austria-Hungary unconditional support, confirming they would back any action against Serbia without hesitation or restrictions. This wasn't merely support. It was a calculated risk based on a fatal assumption that Russia would flinch, that the conflict could be localized. This confidence in strategic intimidation was a profound miscalculation. Emboldened, Austria-Hungary issued a deliberately humiliating ultimatum designed for rejection. When Serbia refused the harshest terms, Austria-Hungary declared war and began shelling Belgrade within hours. The first domino had fallen. Russia mobilized its massive army in defense of its Slavic allies. For Germany, this was the point of no return. Their doctrine, enshrined in the Schlieffen Plan, had no time for diplomacy. It demanded action. They moved first, declaring war on Russia, then automatically on Russia's ally France. Britain was pulled in when Germany violated neutral Belgium. The speed was staggering, from assassination in late June to continental war by early August. Germany's entire strategy rested on one word: speed. The Schlieffen Plan demanded a lightning strike through Belgium to encircle French armies near Paris and win in 6 weeks. It assumed perfection, but perfection was impossible. The plan was doomed from the start by its own modifications. Germany's commander, Moltke, worried about a prolonged conflict, had already diluted the crucial right wing, diverting forces for sensible precautions against a long war. By retaining troops defensively in other areas, he inadvertently destroyed the chance for the short, decisive victory the plan required. The strategy was crippled by its own fear of failure. Belgian resistance bought the Allies crucial days. France launched its own disastrous offensives, suffering horrific casualties. Germany got within 40 miles of Paris. Then, the inevitable unraveling. Overextended supply lines, exhausted troops, and the realization that the initial push had failed. At the River Marne, a desperate Allied counterattack drove the Germans back. The Schlieffen Plan died forever. Both sides raced north toward the English Channel, attempting to outflank each other until they reached the sea. With nowhere left to maneuver, they started digging. A 350-mile scar of trenches stretched from Switzerland to the coast. The war of movement was over. The nightmare of attrition had begun. The Great Scar, Sensory History and Moral Decay, 1915, 1916. The front became a world of corrosive tension, fear, and frustration, a war with no tactics. This sustained process of wearing down the enemy's will and physical strength demanded a new kind of terror. With the land war deadlocked, Germany struck at sea with U-boats, sinking HMS Pathfinder and introducing a deadly new era of unseen, modern warfare. But on land, the industrial slaughter began in earnest. In April 1915, Germany unleashed the horror of chemical warfare at the Second Battle of Ypres. This was warfare by poisoning, a practice already outlawed by international convention, now deployed for mass effect. Chlorine gas enveloped the Allied line, irritating lung tissue and causing agonizing death. The witnesses recorded the immediate, paralyzing effect. A panic-stricken rabble of Turcos and Zouaves with gray faces and protruding eyeballs, clutching their throats and choking as they ran. Soldiers donned crude masks, initiating a chemical arms race predicated on paralyzing terror. By 1916, strategy shifted from conquest to simple destruction. Germany's goal at Verdun was pure attrition, to bleed France dry. The fight became existential. French General Pétain rallied his forces with a cry of defiance, not strategy. Ils ne passeront pas. They shall not pass. They held the line, but at an astronomical cost. 365,000 French casualties and nearly as many German. The earth itself bore the evidence of this horrific commitment. Primary accounts describe the battlefield where the ground was spattered everywhere with blood, and stiffening corpses were visible in the light of the setting sun. To relieve the pressure, the British launched the Somme offensive. July 1st, 1916 became the worst day in British military history. As British troops walked toward the German lines, they were met by the terrible realization of machine gun efficiency, hearing only a continuous hissing noise all around one as the massed fire swept the ground. 57,000 casualties fell in a single morning. Tanks, designed to break the deadlock, debuted, too few and too unreliable to matter. The casualty numbers piled up, making the conflict a tragedy anchored in overwhelming sensory death. While Europe bled, the war went global. The Ottoman Empire, joining the Central Powers, systematically utilized the chaos of war to enact atrocities. During this period, the empire began the systematic deportation and murder of ethnic Armenians, leading to the deaths of over 1 million people in forced marches into the Syrian desert. These were state-sanctioned crimes against civilization, demonstrating the war's capacity for cruelty beyond the front lines. Simultaneously, Germany's U-boat strategy generated diplomatic outrage. The sinking of the passenger liner Lusitania in May 1915, killing 1,198 people, including 128 Americans, solidified anti-German sentiment across the Atlantic. By 1917, Germany was losing the economic and moral battle, leading to a desperate, calculated gamble: unrestricted submarine warfare, USW. They would sink everything, accepting that this move would inevitably bring America into the war, wagering they could starve Britain in 6 months before American mobilization mattered. This strategic bet was compounded by a devastating intelligence failure. The intercepted and decoded Zimmermann telegram was a message from German Foreign Minister Arthur Zimmermann, attempting to secure a military alliance with Mexico, offering 3 U.S. states in exchange for attacking the American border. Publication of this document was a singular event in diplomatic history. The solution of this single secret message had enormous consequences, providing the American public with concrete proof of German hostile intent. Coupled with continued ship sinkings, the telegram unified American tolerance into fury, leading President Wilson to declare war on April 6, 1917. Meanwhile, Russia collapsed. Catastrophic casualties and starvation led to the Tsar's abdication, the Bolshevik rise, and the subsequent Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, freeing 500,000 German troops for one last chance at victory. Spring 1918, General Ludendorff launched Germany's last all-out offensive, employing new stormtrooper tactics to bypass strongpoints and create chaos. They achieved the biggest advance since 1914, pushing 30 miles, but they were outrunning their supplies, and their exhausted troops stalled at the River Marne, where they met the fresh, disciplined wall of arriving American divisions. The final gamble failed. What followed was the devastating Allied 100 Days Offensive. August 8, 1918, the Black Day of the German Army saw mass demoralization and surrender. Bulgaria, the Ottomans, and Austria-Hungary signed armistices. Germany's navy mutinied, and the Kaiser abdicated. The armistice, signed on November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., ended the fighting. Though the grim tally continued until the final second, emphasizing the senselessness of the war's conclusion. The 4 years of slaughter resulted in unimaginable human cost: 9.5 million soldiers dead, 1 in 8 who fought, and 7 million civilians lost. The war fundamentally reshaped the geopolitical landscape, collapsing 4 great imperial dynasties. The Treaty of Versailles was a punitive document, imposing crushing military restrictions, massive reparations, and the humiliating war guilt clause on Germany. This was not a peace built on reconciliation, but on resentment, virtually guaranteeing that the peace itself would be unstable and provide fertile ground for future conflicts. New nations like Poland and Czechoslovakia emerged, but the punitive nature of the treaty's terms ensured that the seeds of a second, larger conflict were sown within the very mechanisms designed to prevent war. The most devastating legacy of the war lies in the Middle East, where imperial powers manufactured future conflict through systemic, contradictory promises. Britain sought Arab support against the Ottoman Empire during the war by promising independence to the Sharif of Mecca in the McMahon-Hussein correspondence. The Sykes-Picot Agreement was a secret pact to carve up the Middle East, creating French and British spheres of influence. Simultaneously, the 1917 Balfour Declaration expressed British support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. The resulting legacy is one of broken promises that were held onto by the involved parties, ensuring long-term instability. The historical critique of the Balfour Declaration, summarizing the perfidy, serves as the ultimate conclusion to the narrative of failed peace. It was one nation solemnly promised to a second nation, the country of a third. The war that was supposed to end all wars created a peace built on systemic, interlocking betrayals, the worst sort of perfidy. It did not end conflict, it simply deferred it, guaranteeing that the sparks of 1914 would continue to ignite new, destructive fires for the next century.